More than 50 of the most advanced warships in the U.S. Navy could be wiped completely off the surface of the water in just a few brief moments. The culprit would not be a stealth cyber fleet, nor a strategic nuclear strike from a great power. The force deciding the fate of these tens of billions of dollars war machines would instead be fiberglass boats. They are a bizarre fusion of a high-powered engine and a crude weapon brought back from the era of the World Wars. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow stretch of water, less than 40 kilometers wide, yet it is choking the energy lifeline of all humanity. 20% of the world's crude oil must squeeze through this deadly narrow gap every single day to keep the great cities alive. It is a perfect choke point, where the power of massive fleets becomes useless in the face of treacherous geography. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran understands clearly that it does not need a glamorous blue water navy to challenge Washington. They chose to discard the entire doctrine of modern surface warfare and return to a brutal yet highly effective style of guerrilla combat. Instead of pouring money into cumbersome supercarriers, they established an absolute denial zone through a doctrine of asymmetric warfare. It is a concept that keeps Pentagon generals awake at night in sheer horror: the Mosquito Fleet. Through the eyes of the active electronically scanned array radars aboard Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, the sea is always chaotic. There, the ghosts of the Mosquito Fleet achieve stealth in broad daylight without requiring stealth technology at all. No huge vertical missile launchers, no angular radar-absorbing steel hulls they hide in civilian-looking forms. This force is made up of hundreds of Ashura and Boghammer-class speedboats, tiny killers with the heart of a demon. They have a rough aerodynamic design with ultralight hulls, allowing them to tear across the water at terrifying speeds of over 100 kilometers per hour. To surveillance satellites, they can easily be mistaken for the Diao sailing boats used by fishermen trying to make a living. It is a perfect dual-use disguise that lets them move freely within dense maritime traffic without arousing suspicion. But when night falls and the harbor lights gradually fade, the dark truth behind the plastic shell begins to emerge. Beneath the torn plastic tarps covering the stern decks of those shabby little boats lies a weapon capable of breaking the spine of an aircraft carrier. Naval mines, iron masses carrying the curse of the ocean wait to be thrown into the narrowest waters of this strait. U.S. intelligence estimates that between 2,000 and 6,000 mines are waiting in underground depots along the coastline. Every automated technical standard of military mine-laying vessels has been crossed out by Iranian engineers. No automated hydraulic systems, no high-tech conveyor belts. The way they are laid into the sea is primitively simple to the point of absurdity. Armed men use nothing but brute strength to roll explosive-filled steel masses over the side of the boat into the dark sea below. Some of the larger boats have had two rusty metal rails welded on so that the mines can slide into the water faster and with greater accuracy. That is all. This is their entire mine-laying system. Crude, but a deadly piece in the puzzle of guerrilla tactics. A tiny boat heads straight into the busiest maritime shipping lane on Earth with terrifying confidence. It needs only a few seconds to dump two explosive blocks into the water, then immediately slams the throttle down and escapes. The engine roars, the boat whips into a 180-degree turn, and vanishes into the dim coastline before American radar can identify it. The truly frightening part does not lie in the reckless act of dropping the mines, but in what then sinks silently into the depths. Half of those thousands of mines are traditional contact mines, floating just beneath the waves like suspended traps. They lie in silence, waiting for the steel hull of a supertanker to crash into them and trigger a devastating explosion. But the other half is the real nightmare. A generation of intelligent bottom mines equipped with electronic brains. These black metal blocks sink straight into the mud, completely invisible to side-scan sonar systems. They need no physical collision at all. The integrated electronics inside each mine act like an independent brain. They lie dormant on the seabed, activating ultra-sensitive microphones, only to listen for the slightest vibration from the water above. A database of acoustic signatures has been preloaded with the distinctive propeller sounds of U.S. warship classes. When a destroyer unknowingly passes by, its propellers slicing through the water generate a unique vibration frequency that cannot be mistaken. The mine's central processor immediately matches the signature and detonates hundreds of kilograms of explosives beneath the warship's hull. A gigantic column of water hurls the ship into the air, snapping its thick steel spine in two within a few thousandths of a second. But the Iranian Guard would not simply lay mines and run. They would also set a second, far more brutal trap. When U.S. minesweepers are forced to move into the area to clear the waters, they enter the sights of the swarm. The swarm formation of boghammer speedboats never chooses a direct one-on-one confrontation. Dozens of boats suddenly burst from concealed rocky inlets, skimming across the waves under the fire of heavy machine guns. They attack relentlessly with unguided rockets and anti-ship missiles, aiming straight at weak points on the hulls of warships. Their goal is not a glorious military victory, but to overload the brain of the defense system. The Phalanx interception system, pride of the U.S. Navy, can spit out 4,500 rounds per minute. It can easily lock onto and shred 3 or 4 targets at once, but it begins to lose direction when the number rises sharply. The system becomes instantly overwhelmed when more than 20 zigzagging targets are dancing chaotically across the radar screen. Half the boats will certainly be torn apart, but the rest will break through that deadly wall of fire. Carrying missiles and explosives, they slam into the sides of U.S. warships and create holes that cannot be patched. To protect the flow of 20% of the world's oil, the U.S. cannot simply send its ships into this slaughterhouse. U.S. Central Command would be forced to overturn the board with an entirely new doctrine, colder and more decisive. No fighting at sea, no playing cat and mouse beneath the surface with reckless mine layers. A brutal decision would come from the Pentagon: destroy the entire network before the mines ever touch the water. A deadly preemptive strike would be activated, aimed directly at the roots, producing that vicious swarm of mosquitoes. The targets would not be the boats gliding invisibly across the water, but the assembly workshops disguised in mountain caves. Underground weapons depots and the motherships used to lay mines would become prey on America's kill list. The core issue would not be firepower, but precise intelligence down to the centimeter on a constantly shifting battlefield. You cannot launch million-dollar Tomahawk cruise missiles into a bustling civilian harbor crowded with innocent fishing boats. A hybrid intelligence network would be deployed at maximum intensity to carry out a silent yet merciless hunt. The eyes in the sky would be P-8 Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft, circling day and night to gather thermal data. They can detect every seam in a ship's metal skin from tens of thousands of meters away through advanced optical systems. Combined with Boeing RC-135 electronic reconnaissance aircraft, this great brain sweeps every faint leaking radio signal. Fragmented communications intercepted from lower-ranking naval commanders would accidentally reveal the locations of their berths and depots. And above all, there would be sharp reports from covert spy networks deeply embedded inside secret military structures. The death picture would slowly emerge on digital screens, speedboats lined up obediently inside port. Beside them, medium mine-laying vessels would remain motionless, tied tightly to the docks with thick ropes. They would not yet have received the order to depart, and that would be the golden moment for the U.S. to launch the perfect killing blow. Sinking a target racing at 100 kilometers per hour is a difficult problem with too many risky variables. A missile may lose the target or accidentally destroy a civilian vessel, causing an unnecessary diplomatic disaster. But setting fire to a stationary vessel exposed at the dock is far easier and safer. This strategy does not merely destroy a ship. It delivers a double blow against the entire logistics system behind the enemy. The launch cells of cruise missiles aboard destroyers far offshore begin to tremble as the order to fire is given. Tomahawk missiles skim low over the sea to avoid radar, aiming straight at ammunition depots deep inland. At the same time, from the stratosphere, B-1 Lancer strategic bombers rain down bunker-penetrating guided bombs. Even the strongest reinforced concrete structures are smashed apart, turning thousands of naval mines into ash within fireballs. The sharpest spearhead in this purge would be the silent killer, the ring of fire from Reaper drones. With a wingspan of 20 meters, the MQ-9 Reaper silently cuts through the night sky, carrying 4 deadly Hellfire missiles. Under the wings of the MQ-9 Reaper are 4 AGM-114 Hellfire missiles, the perfect weapon for dealing with small, mobile targets. On a control screen at a military base thousands of miles away, the weapons officer needs only the slightest movement of the stick. The targeting cross, magnified by advanced electro-optical infrared sensors, locks firmly onto the target's thermal fingerprint. The heat signature radiating from the engine block of the mine-laying vessel is the clearest proof of its presence. A simple press of the trigger releases the Hellfire missile from its launcher at the blazing speed of Mach 1.3. At over 1,600 kilometers per hour, It uses semi-active laser guidance to pursue the target without letting go. The tiny computer inside the Hellfire continuously processes information and calculates the flight path every millisecond. If the target is racing across the waves at high speed, the missile predicts an interception point to ensure a precise strike. The system constantly compensates for wind direction and automatically adjusts its aerodynamic fins so no variable is missed. This process happens entirely automatically in just a few seconds, and the result is always a devastating, destructive explosion. With no warning at all, the IRGC mine-laying boat erupts in flames and sinks right where it had been moored. Not a single anti-aircraft shot has time to ring out from the other side, and not a single mine has time to fall into the water. 16 specialized mine-laying vessels are completely torn apart by razor-sharp Hellfire strikes from high above. Thousands of deadly explosive charges are neutralized before they ever touch the salty surface of the sea and create disaster. The molten metal wreckage sinking to the bottom of the harbor is the harshest proof of the failure of the Mosquito strategy. Iran's swarm tactic once promised to sink billion-dollar super warships using cheap plastic hulls, but it ran into a defense system whose reflexes were colder and far faster than anything originally anticipated. History has already recorded a bloody chain of resistance when the U.S. Navy was pushed into a corner in those dangerous Gulf waters. The Kaman-class fast attack craft Joshan once arrogantly faced a powerful U.S. surface action group. It launched a Harpoon anti-ship missile, ironically, a weapon originally manufactured by the United States before the Revolution. The cruiser USS Wainwright immediately activated its modern electronic warfare systems to protect the battle formation. Clouds of radar-disrupting decoys were launched to mislead the incoming missile away into empty space. Almost immediately after successfully evading the strike, USS Wainwright and the destroyer USS Simpson delivered a decisive counterblow. 3 Standard missiles rose from their launchers, tearing through the sky and slamming into the unfortunate Joshan. This was one of the first true anti-ship missile duels between surface warships in modern history. Joshan was permanently erased from the naval register after a catastrophic explosion ripped apart its thin steel hull. Next came the frigate Sahand, a ship full of confidence as it departed base to challenge the U.S. fleet. As soon as it reached open water, it frantically fired anti-aircraft rounds at reconnaissance aircraft, circling above as a show of force. The consequence was immediate. A squadron of A-6 intruders unleashed a storm of fire onto the doomed ship. The destroyer USS Joseph Strauss added Harpoon missiles, creating a combination of firepower that could not be resisted. Sahand burst into flames and became a giant fireball when its own ammunition magazine detonated inside. The once proud ship sank to the seabed only hours later, leaving long slicks of oil across the water. That same mournful afternoon, the frigate Sabalan seemed to learn nothing from the bloody lesson of its comrades. It wildly launched surface-to-air missiles at U.S. jets, flying patrol overhead. The American pilot calmly circled, locked on, and dropped a laser-guided bomb with perfect precision. The 220-kilogram bomb fell straight into Sabalan's smokestack, causing a horrific internal explosion. The blast from inside destroyed the main engine room, and the ship was effectively reduced to wreckage within moments. This entire chain of destruction and punishment lasted less than 10 days, completely paralyzing the opponent's will. The supreme objective of the operation was to clear away every threat and preserve the flow through the world's energy throat. The blackened remains of IRGC vessels still lie deep beneath the murky water as a warning. America's vast war machine delivered a merciless punishment, turning 16 mine-laying vessels into ashes. Dozens of speedboats vanished completely, and thousands of naval mines were buried under shattered rock and earth. It was a perfect tactical victory, one that allowed the Pentagon to proudly beat its chest before the world. The flow of oil continued once more, and the supertankers again pushed through the Strait of Hormuz. But behind the glow of smart missiles, look at the ironic truth that remains. The mightiest military empire in human history had to mobilize a global intelligence network and spy satellites. It had to use B-1 strategic bombers and Hellfire missiles costing hundreds of thousands of dollars apiece. All of that enormous effort, in the end, was only to counter hastily molded cheap fiberglass boat hulls, boats costing no more than $50,000, combined with rusty iron blocks from the era of the Second World War. The arrogance of advanced technology still had to bow before the most primitive physical loophole of all. You can bomb ports, you can burn factories, but you cannot change the geography of Hormuz. 40 kilometers of width is all that stands between the global economy and total collapse. In the darkest caves along Iran's coast, new boats are already being quietly molded. New mines are already being packed with explosives, preparing for another deadly game of cat and mouse. It takes only one lone boat slipping through to trigger a terrifying shock in the financial markets. A single bottom mine left beneath the mud is enough to disable a billion-dollar super warship. America may have won a major battle, but its system will forever have to live in extreme suspicion every day. It will always be haunted by the fear of one tiny sound coming from the dark seabed below. One invisible click from the mine's electronic brain is enough to destroy every ounce of pride. That is how this world works, where the smaller side can choke the giant through sheer patience. The war in the Strait of Hormuz never truly ends. It only shifts from a hot state to a waiting state. No security system, no matter how advanced, is without its own hidden Achilles heel. The endurance of handmade methods is challenging the limits of artificial intelligence and precision weapons. Remember this: in asymmetric war, the winner is not the strongest, but the one who is most persistent. The ghosts beneath the water are still listening, and the American fleet is still straining to protect the peace. One small error in intelligence calculations could lead to the greatest maritime disaster in modern history. Tension in the Gulf is a chessboard where every pawn carries the force of an economic nuclear bomb. Never underestimate those willing to use their own lives and crude weapons to fight the system. Thank you for joining me on this journey to decode the bloody purge in the Strait of Hormuz. Subscribe to my channel so we can continue uncovering deadly files buried beneath the flawless shell of history. The coldest truths often lie in the places we least expect within military reports. Together we will dive into brilliant minds and the most ruthless plots ever carried out. Each video is a puzzle piece helping you see through a turbulent world and its unfillable cracks. Do not forget to press the notification bell so you can be the first to access the most dramatic declassified materials next week. Next week, I will take you to a place where 2, 5, 6-bit security was shattered by a pencil. A central bank data theft operation carried out without a single line of complex code. You definitely will not want to miss the story of the criminal genius who turned an entire system into fools. It is the clearest proof that human intelligence always finds a way out of even the strongest walls. Goodbye for now, and see you again in the next haunting and dramatic documentary episodes.